Think about your day. You woke up, you checked your phone, you ate something, you worked, you scrolled, you felt vaguely like you should be doing more. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet thought surfaced. Is this really what life is supposed to feel like? Here is the strange thing. Your ancient ancestors asked the same question. They just had a very different answer. For almost the entire stretch of human existence, your body and brain were shaped by a world that looked nothing like the one you live in today. The office, the alarm clock, the commute, the inbox, none of it existed. And yet the machinery inside you, the one processing every thought and feeling you have right now, was built for that older world. So what was life actually like back then? What did the humans who made you spend their hours doing? The answer is far stranger and far more revealing than anything you have been told. Start with time. Not the time on your phone, but the actual felt experience of hours passing. Today, your time is carved up. Meetings have start times, deadlines have dates. Even your free time gets scheduled. For most of human prehistory, none of that existed. Time was not a resource to be managed. It was simply the rhythm of the world around you, the arc of the sun, the pull of seasons, the hunger in your stomach. Anthropologist Marshall Solins studied modern hunter-gatherer groups in the 1960s and found something that shocked the academic world. He called them the original affluent society, not because they had a lot of things, but because they had almost everything they needed and very little they had to do to get it. The average hunter-gatherer, Solins found, worked somewhere between 3 and 5 hours a day to meet all their survival needs. 3 to 5 hours. Then they stopped. That does not mean they sat in silence doing nothing, but it means that what filled the rest of their time looked almost nothing like what fills yours. After the work of finding food was done, your ancestors rested in the shade. They talked, they told stories, they groomed each other, and not just for hygiene. Research by evolutionary psychologist Robin Dunbar has shown that social grooming in primates and its equivalent in early humans was the primary technology for building trust and maintaining group bonds. You were wired deep in your nervous system to sit close to other people and do nothing much at all together. That was not laziness, that was survival infrastructure. Think about the hunting itself. The image you have, probably absorbed, is a dramatic chase, spear in hand, heart pounding, sprinting after prey across the savannah. Sometimes it looked like that, but more often it looked like something very different. Anthropologists studying the Kung San people of the Kalahari found that hunting trips often involved hours of slow, quiet tracking, reading bent grass, smelling the air, pressing a finger into soil, and reading a story from the shape of a footprint. It was not brute force, it was attention. It was the kind of deep focus that your brain was built for, the kind that feels almost meditative when you actually experience it, and the kind that almost nothing in modern life actually gives you. For the women in these groups, the picture was equally counterintuitive. The assumption for most of the 20th century was that prehistoric life was dominated by men hunting while women waited at camp. Decades of fieldwork have dismantled that image almost entirely. Studies by anthropologist Kristen Hawkes on the Hadza, Tanzania, found that women's foraging contributed the majority of the calories in the group's diet. Their days involved walking long distances, sometimes 5 to 10 miles, reading the landscape for tubers and berries and plants that most modern humans could not identify. Their knowledge was encyclopedic. A Hadza woman could distinguish dozens of species of plant by a fragment of leaf, know which roots were edible at what depth, and navigate terrain that would leave a modern person completely disoriented. What she was doing all day was thinking, deeply, constantly, with her whole body involved. Children in these societies did not have structured days either. There was no school schedule, no homework, no planned activities. Research by developmental psychologist Peter Gray has shown that hunter-gatherer children spent most of their time in what he calls free play, unsupervised, self-directed, mixed age groups exploring and experimenting and learning by doing. They were learning how to read people, how to negotiate, how to tolerate frustration and delay. They were doing, in other words, what children's brains are most exquisitely designed to do. And modern research consistently shows that structured, adult-directed activity actually impairs many of the same developmental outcomes that unstructured free play produces. At night, things changed in a way almost no modern human ever experiences. There was no artificial light. When the sun went down, the world went genuinely dark, and your ancestors gathered around fire. This has been so thoroughly romanticized in modern culture that it is easy to miss what was actually happening. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years living with the Kung San and recording what they talked about around those fires. During the day, conversation tended to be practical, economic, who has food, where's water, what needs doing. But at night, around the fire, something shifted. More than 80% of nighttime conversation involved stories. Stories about people who had lived before, stories about the spirits that moved through the world, stories about what it meant to be a person, what obligations you had to others, what courage looked like, and what cowardice cost. Wiesner argued that firelit storytelling was the technology that built the human moral imagination, that the dark and the warmth and the faces lit by flame created the conditions for a kind of thinking that daylight, practical survival mode life, did not allow. Your brain was built in firelight. It was shaped by 10,000 years of stories told in the dark and by the emotions those stories produced. Grief, wonder, pride, shame, love, fear. Those emotions are not accidents. They are the surviving architecture of a social technology so effective that it knit bands of strangers into communities capable of surviving almost anything. And here is what that means for you. When you feel the pull toward a campfire, when you lean in at a movie that makes you feel something real, when you cannot stop listening to a story that seems to reach into somewhere deep and squeeze, that is not nostalgia. That is recognition. Sleep was not even what you think it was. Historian A. Roger Eckertz spent decades studying pre-industrial sleep records and found evidence of something called segmented sleep, a pattern where humans slept in two distinct periods, with a waking interval of an hour or more in the middle of the night. During that interval, people prayed, thought, had sex, talked quietly in the dark, interpreted their dreams. Sleep was not a complete shutdown. It was another mode of being awake. And the modern epidemic of waking at 3 in the morning and feeling like something is terribly wrong may be, in part, your ancient architecture trying to do something it was designed to do, in a world that no longer has a place for it. There was pain in ancient life. Do not mistake any of this for a claim that the old world was better. Infant mortality was devastating. Injuries that are trivially treatable today were often fatal. Violence between groups was real and sometimes brutal. Food was sometimes scarce. But the texture of a day, the actual felt experience of being alive and present in a body in the world, was woven from things that your nervous system still craves so intensely it will manufacture anxiety when they are absent. Deep social connection, meaningful physical movement, open attention to the natural world, rest without guilt, story, fire, darkness, silence broken by voices you know. Here is what you are left with. The question you started with, is this really what life is supposed to feel like? Turns out to be a very old question. The humans who came before you asked it around fires, in languages that left no written record, looking up at stars you can barely see from where you live now. They did not have an answer either, but their bodies were in better dialogue with the question. They moved through a world that matched what they were made for, not perfectly, not without suffering, but closely enough that the mismatch did not split them open the way it so often splits open you. When you feel that quiet wrongness, that sense that something essential is missing, but you cannot name it, you are not broken. You are ancient. You are a body built for firelight and open sky and faces close to yours, running on a schedule designed by people who have never once asked what any of this is for. That feeling is not a malfunction. That feeling is the most accurate signal you have, and it has been there since the very first human sat down at the end of a long, slow, deeply human day, watched the flames, and wondered the same thing.